back to another Centennial Tidbit, where we've been talking with different individuals and organizations about their involvement with the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier and the Centennial that's coming up in 2021. And today we have the unique opportunity to talk with two individuals who have served and are currently serving as a special drummer for the United States Army Band, also known as Pershing's Own. Today I have with me Sergeant Major retired Miles Overton III and Master Sergeant Thomas Delamo. I hope I said that right.
Delamo.
Probably just jump to Sergeant Major Miles and Tom, if you guys don't mind. Brief history, because I find this really interesting. So Sergeant Major Overton and I, we do have a little bit of a history during our times that we were there, but he did serve prior to the United States Army Band with the United States Marine Corps Field Band, which included the elite Commandant's Own Marine Drum and Bugle Corps before... Corps, yes. Before coming over to Pershing's Own, where he did another total of 31 years before retiring from the military. Notable, and he's going to be embarrassed by this, but notable is that he was the first African-American appointed as the special drummer for the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. And he, while he was down there, performed numerous White House ambassador missions for heads of state, senior diplomats, military leaders, and so forth. And he has a distinct luck of having served in every presidential swearing-in ceremony and inaugural parade since 1982 to 2013, which is a pretty good time. Well, Master Sergeant Thomas, who's right there, he's no short person either. He's got a bachelor's degree in music education and a master's in music degree in performance and composition from the University of North Texas. And prior to joining the Army Band, he was a professor of percussion at the University of Montana. He joined the U.S. Army Band and became a premier or special drummer in 2013 and has been doing that ever since. And so he's going to get an opportunity today to talk to us a little bit about the current operational tempo of the Army Band when it relates to COVID and things that are going on in our nation's capital. So gentlemen, both of you, welcome to this, and let's jump right on into it. I'm going to start with Sergeant Major Miles. I did the brief history, but tell me a little bit more about your military history and how you went from the Corps to the Army Band.
Okay, well, I joined the Marine Corps because I wanted to get away from my mother. No, that's not true. No, she was, but I wanted to go to school, and my parents couldn't afford to at the time. So I figured, well, if I'm going to join up with Uncle Sam, I'm going to do the toughest one, I heard. So I started that in the Marine Corps. I did a swift 4 years, a little over 4 years, and I started my schooling then. And upon my senior year of going to Norfolk State University, there was a need for percussionists in Pershing's Own, which I didn't know too much about. I just knew about the premier bands and E6 and blah, blah, blah. So I'm thinking, well, let me try my luck at that. I lucked up and made it. Okay. During that time, my wife was also, she was stationed at Quantico, which is maybe about, 40 miles. So when I got stationed here, we stayed in Woodbridge. She would go south to Quantico, and I would go to Fort Myer. And so it started from there. At the time, ceremonial band I was in. I was also afraid that I might have to do basic again. I didn't have to do that. I think during that time, if you're out for like 5 years, you would have to start your basic. So I'm thinking, okay, Paris Island for 3 months, and then again, so I was kind of terrified. So I think everybody, when they join any new organization, premier band, you're pretty much terrified, and you're anxious to sort of try and improve yourself. So that's how my tenure started in the Pershing's Own. I was ceremonial band also, in addition with, at the time, a vocal group called the Chorale. And later, pretty much from that, there were different ensembles, combo type groups, then with the actual herald trumpets. And I didn't start doing the tomb, I think, sometime in the late 80s. I got there in 82, and I started at sometime in 88 or 89. And during that time, there was a sergeant major or master sergeant at the time, Michael Johnson. I wasn't thrilled at getting, even thinking about doing that, because that's pressure. Even though it looks like to some people you're doing like maybe 4 rolls and that's it. But there's a lot more to go to that. There's a lot more preparation. You're there, that you can't hide. When the formation is the tomb guard, the bugler, and yourself. and every camera that ends in CNN, MSB, and everything is there, And so there's preparation to detail of how you look, the performance of the actual, what they call the British ruffles. So I was terrified from day one up until the last day because I never got comfortable with that position. And also along with that, there's goes briefings, there's rehearsals at 6:30 in the morning. Sometimes depends on how dense the fog is there at the tomb. And so you have all the elements there: Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, you know. And so they want the actual same personnel there to make sure everything goes flawless, which it hardly ever does. So that was my tenure. I'm making a long story short. And so once they appoint you to that position, you have to be appointed to that. It has to be like a slew of people that said, "Hey, we want this guy to do it." I think every person, every percussion style can do it, but I don't think they want the hoopla of it. But I don't think they could take the pressure. You know? And so I think I was pointed to it in 1997, a little before then, and I up into 2013, and that's when I burped Master Sergeant Delomo there. And that's when we started.
Well, and I should have prefaced this interview with a couple of simple things. One, I did have the opportunity to work side by side with Sergeant Major Miles on a wreath ceremony or two down there, and he provided me some sage senior advice to a young staff sergeant at the time, which we can go into later. But you did mention something about how you have to be appointed, and there haven't been that many appointed. So, Tom, I wanted to jump to you real quickly and tell us about your military history, because I believe you mentioned that there's only been 4 special drummers in the history of the band, or something along those lines.
Yeah, and Miles can corroborate that. Vince Batista being the first, and then of course Sergeant Major Mike Johnston, Miles, and then myself. So yeah, there's been only a few, mostly because it's held for quite some time. It's a highly esteemed appointment. It's not one that you do for a year or two, and I think that the selection process is such that you stick with it. It takes a long time, and Miles alluded to it. You don't get comfortable. It is a position that sometimes you question. Boy, I'm making this career hard on myself doing it this way, because a life under that scrutiny is never comfortable. Feeling that you're being judged and wanting to do your best it takes a toll. But it's something that means so much to each of us. I'm sure that it's always been worth it. But yes, there's only been 4.
Okay. How did you come into the military, and what directed you to the Army Band?
I came into the military in 2001. I was pursuing a doctoral degree in music, which is sort of this. I was on this path of higher education. I wanted to, I had been teaching, and I wanted to kind of continue in that path. But I had two directions. I wanted to take auditions to perform in a professional group, or I was going to continue to get enough education where I would teach at the university level, sort of for the rest of my life. And those were kind of going on concurrently. I learned about the audition for the Army Band on a big bulletin board that we had at the university that had job openings for any variety of jobs, from higher education, high school, and orchestras, military bands. I saw the Army Band, and something about it felt like something I could do. Honestly, I come from a military family, but to be honest, I hadn't considered it. I wasn't really well aware of what Pershing Zone did, but I knew growing up in the Army that it would be something that I at least owed it to myself to take a shot. Now, I have to be honest with you, a lot of the folks that I was surrounded by did not think it was a great idea. This is in a period where military bands, at least where I was at school, I didn't know anyone that was in any of the bands. I didn't know anyone. But I wanted to take the audition. I wanted to see what it was all about. And I sort of liked the fact that no one knew anything about it. I saw Washington, D.C. I grew up in Maryland. I saw this opportunity to get back to the East Coast. I saw this opportunity to play music that really mattered. that kind of struck at the heart of what I was all about, making music that makes an impact that can be so hard to measure in the civilian world. And the military musicians, that's part and parcel of what we do, or what we're trying to do. So I took the audition in '01. They do what's called, and Miles could talk about this, we did what's called a large, it's like a call for tapes. Essentially, applicants from all over the country will put on, at that time, CD, some of their playing. And based on the strength of those, however many tapes, they invite a few people for a live audition at Pershing Zone, at the Army Band, at Brucker Hall. And they pay for it, which was great because I was poor and in college, and they put you on a plane and you come and you audition live. And it's basically it's like the musical Hunger Games. You start with a pool of people and it slowly whittles down until they choose one of you. And at the end, they say, we'd like to, you're our selection. And then you have the opportunity to say, this is something I'd like to pursue or not. You know that you're going to go to basic training. You know that the life that's ahead of you. And Miles was excellent at explaining exactly what the job is, which is so critical. You're going to be in the rain, you're going to be in the heat, you're going to be wherever you need to be. And if this is a lifestyle choice, it's not just a career, it's a lifestyle choice. And then I went to basic, and the rest is 19 and a half years of history.
Nice. So I have to ask the question because obviously the two of you overlapped at some point. And I've heard a lot of different things when it comes to the band and the selection process. I understand it's incredibly competitive. And so was Miles part of your people that were reviewing your CD at the time? Or was he assigned to you once they said, Tom, we want you to come on board. By the way, here's somebody that's going to mentor you through this, process. How'd that work?
I can, Miles, you could jump. Miles was definitely present at my audition. He was on stage with me. I remember it vividly because he was very, he's a lighthearted person, but and that helps because it was it's a very stressful and long day, the audition. And I remember being up there doing some what we call sight reading, which is they put something in front of you and you just have to play it as well as you can right there on the spot. And I got done with one and it went pretty well. And Miles looked at me and he said, how many push-ups can you do? And I was like, I can do a lot because I can do a lot. And it was just a way to kind of break the ice. So he was definitely part of the selection process. And then I'm not sure what went into his process with selecting me to follow him at the tomb. That's maybe he can speak to that. But yes, he was definitely a big part of that entire mentorship process. He was the mentorship process, to be frank.
So, and I'm going to ask Miles that question because if Tom shows up at the audition, you're there, you're helping him go through this, and they say, Tom's the man. Now, Miles, go. You had to prepare him for not just joining the Army Band, but as Tom mentioned, are you ready for basic training? This is what to expect. So did you help him through that process and keep track of him while he was at wherever you went to basic training at?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not required, but I felt I had to because I had to tell at least 5 other people that heard and saw him play because it's a visual and you have to hear the person. I said, hey, I'm going to, regardless of what you guys say, I think this is what we need. I'm going to be working very closely with this person more than any of you guys, And so I made it my business to try and find out as much as I could without actually getting into his business, But he was very forthcoming. Everybody's nervous. It's very stressful. I'm even stressed, And so, we kept up the day when he got on the bus to go to basic training while he was there, what he was eating, and everything. And so actually, and the day that he's supposed to report. So, yeah. And I think this is very important because I know how I felt when I came. And I think they try to do that with everybody because he said it's a changing lifestyle. It's just not military, but it's a lifestyle. If the guy's married, how many kids he has, you want to know everything. Well, you have to because these people have to go through a screening and a clearance type thing. We've had some people that were good musicians, but they had some felonies. They were hitmen and they did certain things. So yeah, I caught up and still I try to keep in touch with what he's doing. And like I said, it is a appointed position to the tomb thing. Even before I had him appointed a year before I left, or even before then, because even then, there's certain things, characteristics like leadership skills. Does he work well with others? Does he march like Al Capone? I mean, but there's certain things you just want to know about. And he was, and people agreed it was an easy pick. So I watched him for, I don't know how many years were you in, Tom, before you actually.
You took me down there for the first time in '03, and I was
Wow.
basically standing by for that 10 years.
Yeah. So I didn't leave until 2013. So in 2003, I knew a year before then that he was going to be guy. So yeah.
That's interesting that you would be able to see, and I will compliment you on your mentoring and leadership skills to take a brand new musician to the Army and follow them through and make sure that they and their family are secure and understand the process from basic training to first assignment, which is very impressive. And then obviously as a strong leader, you continued that mentoring process, keeping Tom on the line for 10 plus years, waiting for you to step away. I'm sure that was probably, stressful in its own sense. When
It was a pleasure, honestly.
Well, knowing Sergeant Major Miles, I know there had to have been some levity involved in that because and this is I guess the time to bring this out. I met Sergeant Major Miles probably 98, early 98. So I was in the process as a relief commander for first relief in 97 through 98. And I can't remember if I'd already earned my badge or I think I hadn't. I think at that point I was waiting to do a special ceremony. And I'd done plenty of on the plaza, so it wasn't too big of a change. But for some reason now I remember going outside or on the north side of the building, and Sergeant Major Miles is always a character inside the quarters, and I have photos to prove this. He was a character. But we're standing outside with the bugler on the north side of the amphitheater, waiting to go onto the marks. And matter of factly, he turns to me and says, "I'm not going out there until you tell me a joke. I'm not a joke teller." And he didn't tell me, in the face that you see now with all smiles and giggles, he was serious and he outranked me. So I'm searching my brain for a joke, something, Johnny joke, knock, knock, anything to get him to say, okay, yeah, we're going out on the marks. And I didn't know until later that he must have seen, as a good NCO does, he sees the young troop that is nervous because, like you said, every time you step onto the plaza, there's no routine involved. It's always a challenge. And for him to break the ice, that's how he challenged me. And I remember that 20 plus years later. So, I mean, I think it's amazing that your paths not only have crossed, that Tom, you follow Miles as only the fourth special drummer. So